Hey everyone, it's me, Professor Reread, and I'm going to do something a little bit different with this channel today. See, I've got a problem. I no longer read. What a horrible thing for an educator to confess. Now, all those books behind me, yeah, I've read them all. That's a small sample of my library. I used to be a voracious reader. I mean, I was that guy who always had 2 or 3 books on him at all times. I read like a book or 2 or 3 a week. It was insatiable. I was insatiable to the point where I'd read anything. I'd go to the library and any random book, just give it to me. I had to be sated by the written word. Then something happened. I think what happened was the internet happened, and suddenly my appetite diminished. The availability of video entertainment increased dramatically. And over the last few years, I became a father. Other responsibilities got in the way. And now, without irony or overstating the case, it's true that I literally write more books than I read. This is a problem. Right now, though, I started reading Salman Rushdie's The Enchantress of Florence, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm hoping this is my return to that most perfect existence of insatiable, unstoppable, unrelenting consumption of literature. So with this video today and the next few videos, what I hope to do is to talk about my favorite books, the ones that made me the happiest and most entertained in my life, in my ongoing effort to rekindle the excitement I once had for books, because books are so important. You know, my kid is almost 5 now, and it's really important for me that he also nurtures a love for books, because that is the path to a larger vocabulary. That is the path to experiences beyond the limits of your immediate locale. And it's your passport to sampling all of human history. A good friend of mine, another professor, a famous misanthrope, is fond of saying, "Why do I want to talk to you when I have access to the greatest minds of all time?" And he beckons to the great works of literature on his wall. That's his way of dismissing me. He says, "I don't want to talk to you. I can read Dostoevsky or Tolstoy or Plato right now." And I'm hoping that my son makes similar discoveries. If he doesn't, so be it. But right now, my goal is, again, to rekindle my thirst and love for reading. So today, what I'm going to talk about is a book, one of my favorite books. It's not a good book, but it's a fun book. And I don't have a physical copy with me, so I'm going to point to the cover somewhere in this video in post-production. And that book is called The Mote in God's Eye by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. Now, this book is a science fiction classic. It usually makes a lot of people's lists of the best science fiction books that they've read. The thing is, it's not a well-written book. The prose is embarrassingly bad. You've got characters exclaiming things like, "God's teeth," and "I'll throw that computer into a mass converter," whatever the hell that means. It's the kind of dialogue you'd expect on Babylon 5 or some other clunky space opera kind of products. And I say that as someone who really enjoys Babylon 5, by the way. So I'm a lover of science fiction, and The Mote in God's Eye, or A Mote in God's Eye? The Mote in God's Eye, really speaks to everything I love about the genre. It's one of those books that you curl up with on a stormy night and really take yourself to a faraway place for an adventure, a classic old-fashioned boy's own adventure, if you know what that is. Those old British stories for adventurous young lads, even though it's not meant to be just for boys. Though this book does have a fair amount of unintentional, unconscious sexism. The way that it describes its only female human character, for example, is a bit embarrassing. So let's get this out of the way. It is not a well-written book. The prose is passable, not great. However, the story is palpable. It is, to my mind, the perfect first contact science fiction story. And if you don't know, first contact refers to the first contact that humans make with an alien species. Larry Niven is a grandmaster of science fiction, of a particular brand of science fiction we call hard science fiction, more focused on the mechanics, the technology, the science, and less on the larger philosophical ideas that science fiction naturally engenders. I had the great joy of meeting Larry Niven sometime in the 80s, and he signed a copy of, I think it was A Gift from Earth, one of the books behind me, and it's one of my prized possessions in my collection. Larry Niven really has a remarkable imagination when it comes to world building. Jerry Pournelle, the co-author of this book, is not an author that I typically enjoy. But amazingly, when these two get together, they produce just yarns. What's the word I'm looking for? Ripping good yarns. That's what they are, ripping good yarns. So without giving away much of the book, let me say that it's about humanity's first encounter with the only alien species it has ever known, and it takes place in the distant future when we are already a galactic civilization with great technologies, when we've colonized many worlds, and yet we've not encountered an intelligent alien race. And the way that this book unfolds, it's masterful. It begins with this alien race sending a probe, and we discover this probe, and suddenly it is revealed to us that they exist. But they exist in a part of space that cannot be accessed without a particular technology. And luckily, the humans of this era have this technology. It's shielding for their ships, because they've got to do some space jumps and enter through a star. And that particular nuance of the location of the aliens is what bottles them up in that portion of the galaxy. It's why we've never encountered them before. It's why they have never encountered us. Now, they spend a lot of time, the authors, describing the technologies. And in fact, there's an appendix that goes through the minute details of things like engine efficiencies and things like that. I don't care about that. I don't think most people care about it. But for some reason, Niven and Pournelle think that their audience is made up of extreme nerds of an engineering bent who are on the extreme end of the spectrum. And maybe they are, but that's not my experience, nor those of my friends who are also fans of this book. So they describe the technology well. What they describe even better are the aliens, the Motes. And this is where the book sings, because this alien species is so interesting. They are multi-caste. So there's the mediator caste or class of these creatures that is able to adapt to almost any situation, to learn any language, any culture, which makes telling the story quite easy because you don't have to have translation. Aliens automatically speak our language. There is the worker caste that is able to engineer anything perfectly. Like in many scenes, they examine human hands and remake our tools so it fits our hands perfectly, thus improving the efficiency and effectiveness of our tools. It's remarkable. Then there is the master class that we never see, the ones who are actually in control. And part of the narrative is the hiding of the warrior class, which is a scary kind of creature indeed. So there's an element to the story I don't want to give away, a characteristic of the alien species that is really critical to humans understanding who they are and what they are and what their agenda actually is. And I think it's worthwhile exploring the book to find that out. The major weaknesses of A Mote in God's Eye, or The Mote in God's Eye, is again the characterization, the poor characterization of the women in particular, over emphasis on the physicality of these universes. Of this universe, rather. They describe the spaceships and their technology very well, the biology of the aliens quite well, but that's where the descriptions kind of stop. They go to the alien world, for example, and mention the humans are taken on a car. A car? What does it look like? What color is it? What are the shape of the buildings? How do these creatures live? Describe for me a genuine alien environment. That's lacking. The aliens are revealed to have DNA. That's just glossed over. Why? How do they have DNA? Is this a universal constant amongst all biological things in the universe? How would you know if this is the first alien species encountered? Are they related to us in some way? This is never explored. So there are big gaps in storytelling that, if this were written today, would probably be filled. But this is a book that was first released in 1974, back when these ideas were relatively new. And so I think to go in depth into all of those nooks and niches would be a little bit too much for one volume. I had a rule that I never reread books, because there are so many books to get through. If I reread something, I've wasted an opportunity to read something new. I broke that rule several years ago when I first started noticing that my reading was slowing down. I thought, well, let's read something that I love. So I reread A Mote in God's Eye, and I loved it. And a few years later, I read it again. I've read this book 3 times. I know exactly what's going to happen, but I forget the details. And I'll reread it because it's like watching your favorite movie. You know what's going to happen, but it just makes you feel warm and comfortable. You make the popcorn, you get under the blankets, you turn on the TV, the kids are asleep, the lights are down, and you just know you're going to have a good time. That's what this book is for me. It's a good time. Highly recommend it. Now, there is a sequel, which I think is better written. It's called The Gripping Hand, and it moves very, very fast. It furthers the story. It's a direct sequel. I've read that twice as well, because once you've read the first one 3 times, you may as well read the sequel again, in case you miss something. It's also a ripping, good yarn, but not as transformative or revolutionary or impactful as the first. And there is a third book that I have not read, but it's not really canon, I would say. It's written by Jerry Pournelle's daughter, and something about that rubs me the wrong way. It reminds me of Frank Herbert, who wrote the Dune books. When he died, his son Brian took up the mantle and wrote more books in the Dune series, and they were just shadows in comparison to the great man's product. It struck me as a cash grab. I'm not saying that Jerry Pournelle's daughter's book in this series is also a cash grab. I don't think it is, actually. I think it was a genuine act of love of the series. But if it doesn't spring from the mind of the original creator, it doesn't appeal to me personally. So I've not read that third book. However, I might just reread A Mote in God's Eye. I might do it. Don't tempt me. But for now, I'm going to finish that Salman Rushdie novel and talk to you about it when I'm done. And also, I'm going to make some additional videos about some other books that I've quite enjoyed. So this is the point in the video where I tell you, hey, subscribe and click on the notification link. No, I don't care. Do it or don't. Don't. I don't want you to watch more videos. I want you to go out there and read some books. So until further notice, that's what I'm going to be doing.